It's sort of like a traffic light, right? The more small talk you have, the more you get these signs. Is it a red? Is it a gold? Or is it a green? And you can proceed based on that. The better you get at small talk, the more trustworthy your traffic light becomes, and the less likely you are to misassume about whatever sign the person is given off.
We don't like small talk. You're not good.
I actually like small talk.
Do you?
Yeah, you know why? Because maybe like a few years ago, I read on how important small talk is and how in society we have diminished the value of small talk, but we don't realize that small talk is what connects us as people and big talk is what separates us. So if you have the foundation of a lot of small talk, you find similarities, you exist in the same realities. But then if you only have big talk, then it's like large ideas. So when you go, man, the weather, the other person goes like, yeah, I can't believe how beautiful it is. And you're like, I know, right? Or you go, the weather, it's just, it's been raining. When is it going to stop? I know, right? In that moment, it's the craziest thing ever. You have literally created reality that you share. And now it's easier to say, how do you plan to vote? It's wild.
So it greases the skids.
Yeah, it does. So I actually like small talk now.
If I'm being honest, there are certain people out there who have no interest whatsoever in anything beyond small talk. And that's regardless of how greased the skids are, how lubricated the conversation is. I'm not sure if it's a lack of interest or if it's the lack of ability to process information that is beyond small talk.
So it's easier to say, how do you plan to vote? It's wild.
So it greases the skids.
Yeah, it does. So I actually like small talk now.
I mean, like, you and I haven't spent a lot of time together.
No.
I think socially, outside of like seeing each other at conferences and things, we've only ever actually hung out once, and it was spontaneous.
It was.
Yeah. We had no plans. That was a crazy day. I've texted with you. I've never called you in my life.
Yeah.
You've never called me in your life.
I'm not a big caller. But
No,
yeah.
you're not a big caller. And I don't know if I was driving home, and for whatever reason, I decided to call you.
Yeah.
And out of the blue, I called you, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And you said, I'm sitting here at this hotel in Los Angeles. And I had just driven past that hotel, turned around, and we had a cup of coffee. That's the only time we've ever hung out.
Yeah, and it was a great hang.
And yet, I feel like you're a kindred spirit. I love spending time with you, and it's not because of small talk. It's because every time I see you, we waste no time and go deep. And if other people happen to be at the table, they'll join in. So this is going against the small talk thing.
Yes.
I can't speak how you feel, but I feel close to you because we always go deep and we find commonality in the deepness and we abandon the small talk.
But I think it's because we are of a tribe. So I think that's where small talk is crucial for people. Small talk is not necessary for everybody, but it's crucial when you don't know whether or not you're in the same tribe. So from our get-go, I was told by somebody, a mutual friend, he said, you have to meet Simon. You're going to love Simon. You and Simon, wow, you two together. So, and I trust our mutual friend. So I was like, oh yeah, I mean, let's see. If he says that we will get along, we'll get along. So it's like, I'll meet this person. And I assume that you know enough about me because we're friends that I will get along with this person. And so now when we meet, I don't now waste time. If I met you in a different way, I think I would have been a little slower to just jump in with you because I'd be like, I don't know.
Small talk is, I understand the purpose.
That's a pretty good point, though. If you find, whether through getting to know someone or from a mutual friend, that you and someone are of the same yoke, you probably have more latitude when it comes to what type of conversation to dive into. You know, it's those sort of people who you meet and you just feel like longtime friends. You don't have to beat around the bush. You just get straight to the topic. Even when it is based on small talk, you know, it still elicits that feeling of camaraderie and understanding. But when it's more meaningful than just small talk, you still have that sort of a foundation, even though that foundation might not have taken some active work from both of you. It might have been pre-established because of who you were before coming into that relationship, so to speak. There's this other experience that I think really affirms what Trevor is trying to say here, which is when we meet someone, if we feel like we're kindred spirits with the person, we're very like-minded, and then it turns out that actually we're not. Maybe we say something that the person finds provocative, even though we thought it was pretty benign. That makes us start to want to cocoon a little bit more. It starts to make us want to raise our guards up and stop being as transparent as before. Now, that juxtaposition between how we felt when we thought we were like minded, that feeling of just wanting to divulge more and more and more versus the subsequent feeling of now wanting to hold back information, I think is a great example of the power of small talk. Had we given it more time, had we gotten to actually know the person and had a more warranted sense of like-mindedness with that person, we would have been on even firmer ground when it comes to the types of things that we can talk about. And that's why small talk can be so powerful for people who want to connect with other people, regardless of the differences in opinion. To use another analogy, it's sort of like a traffic light, right? The more small talk you have, the more you get these signs. Is it a red? Is it a gold? Or is it a green? And you can proceed based on that. The better you get at small talk, the more trustworthy your traffic light becomes, and the less likely you are to misassume about whatever sign the person is given off.
If I met you in a different way, I think I would have been a little slower to just jump in with you because I'd be like, I don't
small
know.
talk is I understand the purpose of it, and maybe as I'm sometimes socially awkward in groups and introverted. I'm not good at small talk, and I start with like my opening is a yes or no question, which is been here before, yeah. And then my mind goes blank. Panic starts to happen.
I'm the same as you, right? But I genuinely love doing the things that I'm not good at and then trying to get comfortable in the spaces that I'm uncomfortable. And so what I'll actively try and do, like my first instinct when I walk into a room is to find a corner.
Yeah.
That's my
likewise.
first instinct.
Or find somebody I know or
Yes,
a corner.
corner.
Either one of those is fine by
Corner
me.
immediately.
Agreed.
And then I enjoy the room
Or a buffet.
from there.
You'll find me by the buffet because I can just disappear and just fill up a
You
plate
just
with
go and
food.
peruse the
I go-
food.
I'll fill up a plate.
Oh, okay.
But
I
it
thought you
gives
just go stand at
no,
the
no, no,
buffet.
no, no. Again, just my point is, it gives me something to do that doesn't look like I'm
He's like, there is no social awkwardness that's going to stop me from filling up a plate.
awkward here and just fill up a
You
plate
just
with
go and
food.
peruse the
I go-
food.
I'll fill up a plate.
Oh, okay.
But
I
it
thought
gives
you just go stand at
no,
the
no,
buffet.
no. Again, just my point is, it gives me something to do that doesn't look like I'm awkwardly trying to not engage.
Yeah.
It looks like I'm just trying to get food,
Okay,
which
I
I
see
am.
that. Yeah.
And then I can sit down and eat.
Yeah, that's my instinct.
Yeah.
But I realized over time, I was like, okay, I asked myself a question. I was like, all right, Trevor, why are you uncomfortable? I was like, well, I'm uncomfortable because I assume that people don't want to talk to me, and I assume that I'm taking up unnecessary space, and I assume that these people will reject me, and I assume. So based on all those assumptions, through a lot of therapy and I guess a little bit of introspection, I started realizing I'm making assumptions about how the world sees me before the world has told me how it sees me.
Yeah.
So I should just take a moment to see if the opposite is true. And then what I try to do as much as possible, which is hard, and you and I do talk about this, is I don't make it about the outcome. So I don't go, if I go speak to people, they will like me, or if I go speak to people, I'll become friends with them. I just walk in and I think to myself, all right, try your best. Just have a small talk conversation with this person. And I'll walk in and I'll go, wow, those are really cool shoes. And the person's like, oh, thank you. Thank you. And then I'm like, why did you choose those shoes for this outfit? And then they'll go, oh, well, it's actually funny. And you'll be shocked at people and you get into the world and you're like, oh, this is an interesting party. I'm awkward. And then they'll be like, oh, I have fun here. I know it's amazing how the world is not oftentimes what you think it is. It's just what you've told yourself it is.